Hi Sloths, and welcome to a bit of an update video. I know I keep forgetting to plug my Instagram into all my videos, so right here, right now, I will tell you before we start this actual update video, there will be a link to my Instagram for the channel down below in the description. Now that that's out of the way, there's something I kind of want to talk about, and I'm sure you know what it is because there is a title on this video, and it is probably titled something like Why I Quit Game Development or Game Design or something like that. Now, for a bit of backstory, growing up, I had to use games as an escape for a lot of different things. I'm not going to talk about any of those things in this video because I really don't want to talk about those things. It's kind of personal stuff, so I'll quickly move on from that. But I always loved games after, finding the few that I really like and getting to know my own interests in terms of games and what I like to be in those games and things like that. And it didn't take me long. My original sort of like dream was My original dream was to be a chef or a head chef or something. But it didn't take long for those dreams to be absolutely crushed. And after that, I thought, well, what's the next best thing? I spent so long thinking about it. It took me years and years to actually understand what it is that I actually wanted to do as a career after I realised I'm not going to be able to be like a chef or anything like that. I can't handle the anxiety and the stress of all of that, as well as other things at the time that were stopping me from being able to do, things like that. And then it sort of hit me one day. I'm not going to say when or what stage of life I was in, because again, it's personal stuff and I want to try and stay clear of that as much as possible. But I realised I wanted to do game development or game design. I wanted to make games. That was like the big thing for me, and that was the big thing for me for years. There's something about games, and a lot of the times when I play a game, I always think about the development of it and how all of that works and what goes into it. I like to pick apart every single key detail that I can find and think about what was going through the developers' minds when they were making this, or what are all the hidden details that no one, unless they did game development, would even notice. And that always fascinated me, and I always wanted to share my thoughts and feelings on game design with other people, and I always wanted to do it through game development itself, and I wanted to meet people who were like-minded and always not always and also enjoyed the same sort of experience as I did. Turns out people who like games don't really seem to care much anymore. I'm not going to name any names, obviously, but I was also talking to a friend recently. Well, not recently. It was actually, it was several months ago, this conversation. But we was talking about, character design and things like that. And they didn't seem to understand the importance of, character design. I had to spend a lengthy amount of time explaining to them, how minute details in a character's design or a slight change over a course of even just a single game, whether it be a sequel or a prequel or something, can spark so many debates and so much interest over the backstory of a character, and it can showcase tiny details that you wouldn't notice unless you paid real attention to it and wanted to pick apart the exact details of his character. Like, for an example, maybe like the emblem on a character changes slightly. And some people think, oh, maybe it's just a mistake, or maybe they just decided to change it because it looks cooler. But sometimes developers do that for tiny little hints, and Easter eggs as well, maybe, towards where his character's going, where his character's been, or just the tiniest little details can really make a character stand out. I'm going to be saying a lot in this video because I don't have a script and I'm talking out of my brain. And my brain is kind of like freezing a lot because of anxiety and stuff. So I do apologise for that. Where was I? Oh yeah. And it's not just that, but this friend of mine, he also doesn't. He's never really cared for music all that much. He likes the music in games, but he never really actively listens to it or understands the importance of it. And I'm not just trying to rag on this one single friend of mine. No, he's fine. Don't worry about it. He's just not all that. It just doesn't seem to care as much as I've seen a lot of people do. And he seems more passionate about gameplay rather than literally anything else. And even if that gameplay is shit, he seems to have a real interest for that rather than anything else. So moving onwards, the music thing, yeah. So I've made music for game development and stuff like that before. Some of the music that I have made on the channel is reminiscent of games you might hear in reminiscent of music that you might hear in games, like Dance to Danger. That one is, I'd say the theme of that one is no, not Dance to Danger. Actually, no. Sorry, my mind's going blank, so I'm gonna skip that little bit for now, because I can't think properly about those things for some reason. It's just not coming to my brain. So yeah, I've made music before, and obviously it's a lot of the few things that I've done on this channel sound a lot like something you might hear in a game. Like old retro games, whether it be good games, bad games, or whatever. And I've always understood the importance of music in games. I absolutely love the soundtrack of games. When I'm playing games on the channel, you will constantly hear me talk about how much I love this track, or how much this track gets on my nerves, or how this track might make me feel in certain areas of the game or whatever. Like, for an example, the music in the Pokemon games that I've been playing on the channel, you will notice quite often I'm like, oh, I absolutely love this music. I love the music in this game. It's so good. And I will gush about it all day and every day if I have the time to do that. And there's a lot of people out there who don't seem to have an interest in these things and don't understand how important or of it, like how big of an impact just a single note of sound can be in a game. And none of this really has anything to do with why I'm quitting game development, by the way. I'm just giving you a bit of backstory. I actually was talking to someone recently about how my passion for game development and just the tiniest little details in it have sparked so much of a passion for me to create games myself, and things like that. So moving on from all of that, I ended up in college, and I ended up doing game development or game design. And I found it really interesting. I found it really fun. I got to work on my own games. I got to work on my own 3D models and 2D sprites and stuff, and coming up with ideas for games and stories was like a huge passion of mine. Story development is what I mainly focused on. It's something I've always had the biggest focus on. But I always struggled with things like 3D modeling. My programming was decent. It was passable, and that's saying it lightly. um, and I really enjoyed working on these things, even if I knew I wasn't doing like the best of jobs or anything like that. Um, and the sound design side of it, I also enjoyed. I loved working on making these crazy sounds from scratch, uh, doing it in like messing around in Audacity on Premiere Pro with these sounds, and actually going out and creating like Foley effects and all sorts. It was a joy to do. It really was. I loved doing it all the time. Um, Unfortunately, something happened in my final year of college, and obviously I finished college. I did really well, surprisingly. I wasn't expecting to do as well. Actually, I was hoping to do better than what I did, but I wasn't expecting to do as good as I did, if that makes any sense. Um, so by the end of that, I was told that I could go on to do like a university course on it for free if I wanted. I think, was it for free? I can't remember. Um, but due to like really serious mental health issues, I couldn't handle it anymore. I couldn't handle that sort of situation, so I decided, what, I was going to take a break, and if I really felt like it, I'd go back to it, or I'd do it, in my own time, and teach myself the rest of it, and just build up a portfolio, maybe work in game development. Um, but then, I mean, all throughout the years of like game development stuff, what I've wanted to do is make games on my own. That is to do with creative freedom. Um, I mean, I'm sure you've heard a lot of like indie developers talk about how they didn't want to go into the industry because they didn't want their creative freedom to be trampled on. They didn't want their ideas and games to be stolen, and things like that. Um, and that's what I wanted as well. I wanted to do games on my own because I didn't want people to steal my stuff, or tell me that I can't do tiny little things that wouldn't really matter, but it's like it's not in the focus of how they want the game to be and how I would want the game to be. So that it's a creative difference thing, and I wanted to move away from that as much as possible because I wanted to do what I wanted and not what anyone else wanted. Um, so then years passed, and I started doing a lot better mentally, and I started doing game development on my own for a while. I tried making several games, but I was never happy with any of them. Never. And the main reasons for that is because although the story was great, everything else was lacking. I was atrocious at 3D modeling. Like, really bad. I can't 3D model to save my life. So. And the trouble with that is, no matter how hard I tried over the years, I never really seemed to improve. And, the music, sound design, and stuff, sure, I could take stuff off the internet, but like for free and stuff, and I did that sometimes, as especially for like placeholder things. But I wanted to make my own sound effects and music as well, and I tried learning instruments and things like that, and I also tried doing like MIDI things and online sequences, and I even like had a go at like FamiTracker as well, I think it's called, chiptune stuff, and I just couldn't get the hang of it, and I didn't know why. Like, I spent years on these things, and I tried so hard, and for some reason I just couldn't wrap my head around certain things, and I couldn't get anywhere close to the level that I wanted. So then came things like programming, and again, it was the same thing. My abilities just, I couldn't improve them. And I spent so long, and I managed to improve like tiny little things. And then I realised, damn, I'm really not good at game development. And it started really, really wearing me down over the years, because I was like, I mean, I might have gone to college, I might have picked up how game development works, and what you need to be able to do in order to like make a game, and how important every aspect of game design and game development can be. But I also realized, I'm not very good at it. So that got me really depressed, and over the years as well, whilst I was struggling with this, I was trying still to make games, and I was messing around in Unreal Engine 4 at the time. I even tried free software to make it easier on myself, because obviously it's expensive. I was taught how to use Autodesk Maya, which is like 300 quid a year, and that's expensive. So I tried free services, free 3D modeling. I tried Blender. I tried all sorts of stuff. I even switched to different development software, like not Unreal, Unity and Game Maker and things like that, and RPG Maker as well. But nothing really felt easier for me, and I couldn't understand why at all. It took me so long. And then, recently I thought, well, okay, I don't know what's going on with my my model's hair right there. So about maybe 2 years ago now, I started working on a game, and I thought to myself, right, I'll play to my strengths instead of focusing on everything else. So I thought, you know what, I'll make a visual novel. And then I realised, I'm shit at all kinds of art, not just 2D and 3D modelling. So then I was like, okay, I'll make a text-based adventure game. All that is it's plenty of programming, which seemed easy enough, and then there was, just writing and story development, and that's what I was really good at. So I started doing that. It had a name. It was in like this early prototype stage, and the people who tested it for me and played it, they really enjoyed it. They loved the story. They loved the characters and how they interacted. They thought everything was charming and interesting. But the one thing that I just couldn't get down was the programming for it. And so what I wanted to do was, I decided to move it to like a smaller platform, where it would be so much easier, where like the whole programming side of things was done for me, and all I had to do was little tiny additions every now and then, to make certain things work the way that I wanted to, and then just write the story and the dialogue and the characters and stuff. That's all I needed to do. And you know what? I even created, sprites for the game as well to give some semblance of like imagery as well, just so people like could see something. Because I also thought that although the text-based adventure games are really fun and deep in story and rich, it can also get a little bit boring every now and then if all you saw was text. And I also couldn't add like music and sound to this thing that I was using, so that was kind of annoying as well. So I thought, once I've got all the story and stuff sorted out, and I know exactly what I'm doing, then I can move it back to a different type of software where I can program everything myself. I can add music, and I can add additional bits of artwork every now and then if I wanted to, and then maybe slowly build it into like a visual novel instead, and do things that way, because that played a lot more on my strengths than having to deal with my weaknesses. So I did that, and due to other personal issues, I had to cancel the game. And that was massively disheartening because I really, really wanted that game to be a success. Even though it would take me a while to, actually finish it in proper software, I really wanted to give that game the best that I could, because that was like my last attempt. So, about a year goes by, and I'm thinking about other games that I'd like to develop, and I start working on like really, really old projects again, and just trying to see if I could improve any of those, or if I could ever be happy with any of them to actually release them. No, that didn't work out. And then eventually I started working on pixel art, and I love working on pixel art. I hate it because it takes a really long time, but I love finally having some sort of art that I enjoy doing and that I can do. And over time, I have improved so much more than I thought I would. And it's like, how come I can improve on this thing, but everything else for years stays the exact same level of terrible? And then it hit me. Why don't I make a game that's pixel art? It might take ages, but it's something that I can do. It's a type of art that I can do, and it'll be really fun and interesting. So I did. I started doing sprites, concept art. I started thinking of like the story and level design and all sorts. And then I started working on it. And working on it and working on it, and eventually I realised, this is going to take too long. Doing this on my own is going to take the piss. It's going to take way too long, and I'm going to get really frustrated really quickly, and then my mental health went down the drain yet again. And I stopped working on it, and then I forgot about it, and then I started thinking about other projects, and then I realised I might as well just give up. So I gave up for a little bit, but then I wanted to work on game development again, and I got back into it. I felt so inspired by a lot of like YouTube videos I saw of people like bringing old games back to life and remastering things, and I was like, I could do that. I can, but I just want to make something new and brilliant and that has my sort of mark on it. I don't know really how to explain that. Just my sort of humour and way of telling stories, and then I started writing short stories again. Like a long time ago, I used to write short stories, but I never really released them, like onto the internet because I never really wanted to. I never really, wanted to share what I wrote because I didn't think it was, a good idea. I just didn't want the rest of the world to see what I was writing. But then I started writing short stories because people was telling me like the stories I was making for game development and things like that were really, really good and really cool, and they wanted to see more of it. But if I'm not going to be making these games, then why not just write stories instead? Because it's clear to them and clear to me that I'm really good at writing stories. So I started writing stories again, and I made a few really short stories. And some of them were even good enough for me to eventually put out on the internet, and I have. My Wattpad page will also be in the description below. I really, really hope you check that out because it's something I put so much effort into it when I actually can get around to it. So yeah, I started doing that, and then again, I wanted to work on game development again. It's like it's always been such a huge passion of mine to want to make a visual brilliant experience that people can play and actually have fun with and notice all the hard work and detail that goes into game development. And so I threw my hands up in the air and I said, I need help. I can't make a game on my own. So I asked an old friend. We agreed. We agreed on a game, an idea, and we talked about it for a while. And that was it. I gave this friend of mine the story that I had come up with, and it was kind of like a we'll get around to it at some point because this friend of mine, he was apparently he said he was going into like some sort of game development competition, and he's brilliant at game development, much better than me. Programming especially is what he does best, and now he's working on his art and his 3D modeling, and it is improving so much from when we first met, because we actually met in college, and he was already pretty good at it, and it's like he reined me in a lot because sometimes my ideas and my artwork got crazy. Like a good kind of crazy, like completely bonkers, off the walls crazy, but brilliant at the same time. But it would also be too much for the things that we were doing or we were able to do. So he reined me in a lot, and I helped him with like story development and things like that because that was my big thing, and he helped me with like 3D modeling and programming. So we worked really well together. So I knew that I could trust him to help me with game development. And then, he was busy, and then both of our mental healths kind of went down the drain yet again. And I just forgot about it. I had so much more of other things that I needed to focus on, and we still never really talked about like the story or anything. But I was in a call with him recently, and I talked to him about things, and about like game development, and how I was like, I think I'm done with it. I think I'm just gonna adapt it into other things. And then I actually said to him, if it's okay with you, I think I'd prefer to just create, like adapt the story that I made for the game into like a proper short story instead. And it was like, sure, fine, whatever. So that was sort of me realizing that I'm no good at game development. No matter how passionate you can be about something, not everyone has the ability to do as well as they hope in certain aspects. And that is so disheartening. I mean, it's fine me saying it out loud, it's fine me realizing it, but I I don't want to have to be the person to tell you that sometimes things just don't work out, no matter how hard and passionate you try. Uh, no matter how hard you try or how passionate you are. But sometimes things just don't work out. And I hope you've realised that before I've told you, because I don't want to be the bearer of bad news. I mean, I could be wrong. I could be looking at this completely wrong. But for me at least, it just didn't work out. And I don't think it ever will. Now, there's a lot of things that you're probably thinking to yourself throughout this entire thing is sort of like, why don't you go back to university? Or just go to university in general? I don't want to be in debt for the rest of my life because that's what university is. And I've never really enjoyed that sort of... I don't know how to explain it. I'm going to leave that one. But I also would like to say that I have really bad anxiety, and I find sort of those things to be way too much for my anxiety to deal with, especially right now when my mental health is like so down the drain. So I can't handle it, basically, and I don't want to go back anyway to a sort of system or sort of like scenery or setting such as that. I just can't do it. I can't. And then you're probably also thinking, well, why don't you just pay someone to help you? Or like give your ideas to a company or something like that. Or just build up a portfolio, then go into game development and work in in story development. It's not as easy as that, and I also have like really, really bad trust issues, so I don't feel comfortable giving anyone like any access to, you know, my stuff, my ideas without first trusting them, and it takes so long to build trust, so very long to build any kind of trust for me. It's so difficult. Just another reason why I don't want to do collabs. Because I struggle to trust people. Moving on from that as well, game development is extremely expensive. I don't have like an estimation of how much certain things will cost anymore because it's been so long since I've even bothered to think about such things. But whether I've got all the money in the world or not, it's not something I want to do. It's just, it wouldn't really be my project if I paid someone to help me, because with the amount of things I need help with, I would mostly not be doing much work at all on the development side of things. I'd be paying other people to do like so much programming, so much artwork, and at the end of the day it won't feel like I've made it because I haven't. I've hardly touched it. I've just done the story and maybe some of the character stuff. And although I love pixel art, I also don't want to do it as like a job because it's so frustrating and it takes so long to do tiny little bits of art. So what I've decided to do is, like I've said, I have decided to adapt the story for the game that I was working on into a short story, and so far I think I've only done a prologue of that. Like I've also mentioned, my mental health has been so much down the drain lately, and I've also just been really busy. I've not had chance to work on writing anything recently, but I want to get back into it again, and I feel like that's going to help as well with like my mental health, just being able to focus on one thing. It's also another reason why the videos on this channel have been so lackluster lately, because I've been busy, my mental health has been down the drain, and I've just not had the motivation or the energy really, and I've also been ill to work on videos, and I really want to do more videos. I do, believe me, it's something I really want to do, but it's just not all the time do I have the time in the world, if you get what I mean. I don't always have as much time as I want to work on videos, or as much motivation and energy as I want to work on videos, or on anything for that matter. And I also get distracted really easily by other things that go on in life or that I want to do. But yeah, I know it's been a really long video, but I just wanted to get off my chest why I've decided to quit game development, and you know how difficult it has been for me to come to this realization that I'm just not fit for game design or game development. I'm just I know it's horrible to say, but I'm just not good enough, and sometimes no amount of practice makes perfect. Like, no amount of practice that I could do seems to be improving almost any aspect of my abilities in any kind of category of game development or game design. I know I keep saying game design or game development, and that is because they are technically two different things. Design fits more around art, sound, story, and development mainly focuses on project management. Well, not really project management, but level design and programming and things like that. So there are separate things. This video is also going to be uncut because there's not really anything that I need to cut out really. I'm only mentioning that now because I'm just talking about whatever comes to my mind. I know I should end the video. Thank you for listening to me ramble on about the reasons why I have decided to quit game development, and how difficult it has been for me to realize this and then make the decision to stop, and how I'd like to adapt, you know, these failures into something completely different. Well, not completely different, but you know, it's pretty different. So yeah, please like and subscribe. It's always free, and I'll see you later.